What do you think, Roscoe? Is Daddy gonna get stung by a bunch of bees? Probably. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. On today's agenda, an abandoned dump truck revival. I don't know if it's really abandoned or what technically designates something to be abandoned, but a friend of one of my family members got a hold of me and said, "Hey Matt, fan of the channel, any chance you want this dump truck?" And I don't really need another dump truck, but he's offering it for free, so you're not going to see me turn down a free dump truck, especially when it's powered by a 671 Detroit. So we show up here on this beautiful spring day to pick up said dump truck, and I got thrown a curveball. I'm not mad about it, but nobody mentioned that we're going to be waking up a Detroit right near 4 active bee colonies, one of which that appears to be swarming. I don't know if you guys can see them real well, but there's a lot of them buzzing around the camera right now. They're angry. Now, thank God I'm not allergic, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. So we do have a bit of breathing room from that colony that's swarming over there, but they are still just flying everywhere. So here's this beautiful rig. She is in rough shape. That's just all Bondo. The truck is no good. The bed is no good. Very rotted. But if we can save the Detroit, that's all we're really after. We gotta be very quiet during this revival. We do not want to rile up the bees more than they already are. I've also seen lots of hornets flying around. This could prove to be interesting. I was told this truck hasn't seen any action in several years. It was used around this little farm a little bit most recently, a couple years ago, but it's been a few years since it's been started, they said. So as far as I know, there's no reason this thing shouldn't just fire right up. But in case you haven't been around Detroits before, they're kind of loud, and I'm terrified that it's going to set off all these bees. So the course of action here, I guess, is going to be very quickly try to get this thing fired up, and then don't waste any time dilly-dallying, and we'll just fly it. We'll just drive it past the bees and get out there onto the driveway, away from the bees as far as possible. Hopefully we're not being pursued at that point, and then we can load it up onto the trailer and get it the heck out of here. There are just bees everywhere. See if we can open the door here without getting stung. I see some hornets flying around in there. Didn't think to bring any bee spray. Definitely should have. So I've seen 3 kinds of bees now. That was a yellow jacket that just flew out us. So I've seen hornets, yellow jackets, and we've got honeybees. Things are really shaping up here. I have not gotten stung yet, fingers crossed, but I don't think I'm gonna. There are just bees everywhere. Every time I make a move, I'm getting barraged by, what do they call those, the drones, or the guard bees, whatever those things are. They haven't stung me, they just keep hitting me. I think we're gonna have to come back and do this at another time. Well, we're back here at 10 till 9. Hopefully the bees are in bed. The bees are a lot happier this time of night. Well, I was able to sneak over here and stick a battery in without getting stung. Suppose we ought to check and make sure it has oil. Oh yeah, It's got enough. Probably don't really need to worry if it's got antifreeze. I don't think we're going to run it that long, but might as well check it while we're here. Nope. Can't see it. And I would normally like to check the rack on any of these Detroits, pull the valve cover off and make sure that all the injectors are free. But it's kind of a pain on these trucks. It could be done, but this thing has an emergency shutoff flapper. Basically what that would do, in the event of a runaway, we could just kill the air to the intake and it would shut off that way. Wonder if she's kind of stuck. Well, it's not stuck, but it's not happy. It does not want to make a revolution. Well, we're back here at the honey hole for Brigadier trucks for a third time. The bees are definitely calm again today. I was able to back my trailer quietly in next to the truck here, and I'm hoping that maybe we can get this thing loaded today. I had to abandon this mission the other night because the engine will not turn over. I don't know exactly what's going on there. We're going to do some quick and dirty investigating here, hopefully without getting stung to death by bees. But basically the engine was trying to turn. It's not locked up, but it just won't make a full revolution either. So I'm not sure what's going on in there. We'll have to investigate that. But we're not going to do it here. I already see some yellow jackets buzzing around, and I brought some bee spray with me today. I'm not getting stung. They're not honeybees. Don't worry, I won't spray any honeybees, but yellow jackets, they're gonna get it. These are those really big yellow jackets too. I only started seeing these around here a couple years ago. Seems to be effective. Yep, there's bees in there too. This whole truck is just cursed. Starting to wonder if a 671 is worth getting lit up by bees like this. I haven't been stung yet, but I just see it as inevitable at this point. Alright, so I went around and fought off a couple little wasp nests, nothing too severe. First thing I want to do is pull this intake boot off of here. There is a little flapper down here, and what this basically does is an emergency air cutoff. In a runaway situation, you could engage that flapper and it'll completely cut air off to the engine and shut the engine down. That little flapper is seized up, so that leads me to wonder if there has been water getting into this intake, and if there is, how bad is things stuck? Doesn't appear to be any immediate way that water could be getting in there, unless there's a hole in this tube, which is pretty rough. Definitely could be. Oh yeah. I don't think we're getting this thing running anytime soon. Holy crap. I did not expect it to be that bad. Oh. Yeah, there's a mouse house. The critters have made a home. And they have definitely been getting it wet in there. That is a real bummer. And in a way, it's a good thing it didn't start up, because it would have just pulled that whole mouse house into there. Detroit probably wouldn't have minded, but not the best thing for it either. Unfortunately, with that discovery, that kind of puts the nail in the coffin of getting this thing running here on site. Ultimately, this entire truck is probably going to wind up in a scrapyard, with the exception of a few parts that we'd like to save off of it. The biggest part being that engine. If the engine is still viable, there's a good chance that all that is damaged, if it's even really seriously damaged, is just the blower on the side of this engine. The engine, like I said, is not stuck. It does want to turn, it just doesn't want to make a full revolution. So the full story on this truck is that the guy that is giving it to me tried to come down here before I got here. He hooked some jumper cables on it and he tried to crank it up before I ever got here, and he said that his jumper cables just weren't strong enough to turn over, he thought. And I'm wondering now if what happened was it turned over a little bit and pulled in some junk into that blower, and now the blower is locked, causing the rest of the engine to be locked as well. I guess at this point all we can really do is try to winch it up on the trailer. Maybe we'll be able to get this engine running at home. I just don't have all the stuff here to do it, and there's no need to really fight it here. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and pull the trailer in front of the truck, get it lined up good, and we'll just try to winch it up onto the trailer. I'm hoping that the brakes aren't locked. If the brakes are stuck, that's going to be a problem. This truck does not have spring parking brakes though, so we don't have to worry about pressurizing the air system and trying to release them or anything. So that's handy. But they could still be stuck in the way that the shoes could be rusted to the drums or something like that. We'll see what we can do here. Still lots of bees flying around. Well, it finally happened. Got stung right on the nose. I knew there was no way I was getting out of here without a few bee stings. We got our snatch block hooked up right down there on the front axle. I've just got to go connect the winch to the battery now and get the remote control out, hopefully without getting attacked by more killer honeybees up here. Boy, this is how much noise I make when I'm trying to really be quiet. Makes you realize how much you make when you're not trying to be quiet. This is hard. I'm getting everything lined up to start yanking this thing up on the trailer, and I'm noticing we got some sort of West Virginia alignment going on here. We got this tire is kind of pointing that way, but that tire is pointing that way. Right. I'm not sure which way to turn the wheel at this point. That's what I was afraid of. It's not moving. Alright, so you heard it here first, folks. I was wrong. I didn't really pay very good attention to those brakes back there. I just noticed that they were wedge brakes, and for some reason I didn't think wedge brakes typically had a parking side to them. Also, there is a manual cable-controlled park brake there next to the clutch pedal, so I also assumed that was the only park brake. I didn't think it would have two. Still think that's kind of weird. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's not a park brake. I didn't really look that hard. But anyway, moral of the story is the air brakes are stuck in the on position. So we need to charge up the air system on the truck here. And the only way I think I can do that is by opening up the bleeder valve here. And then I'm going to take a rubber tipped blowgun. We're going to attempt to charge up the air system, and then I can shut this valve back off. Hopefully there's no major air leaks and we can keep the brakes released long enough to get this thing up on a trailer. I'm sure my air compressor will not irritate the bees in any way. I actually brought a tool with me that I could backfeed through the glad hands at the back of the truck. But unfortunately, I did not realize the glad hands on the back of the truck are so smashed up that you can't get air into them. Well, it's taking air. This could take a little bit. I'm gonna have to fire up the compressor here in a second. Oh man. I can hear air leaks. That's not good. Well, just judging by how quickly that air leaked out of that tank, I'm gonna go ahead and say that we aren't gonna be able to keep up with putting air into the tank that way. So I just yanked the dog box cover off here to expose the air compressor. I think we can just go ahead and splice right into the main air compressor feed line here, and that way I can plumb it in there and keep the compressor running, keeping the air pressure up so we can keep the brakes released, then winch it up on the trailer. Man, it's so simple. I don't know why more people don't rescue old equipment like this. Oh, come on. Oh. Oh my goodness. Unbelievable. Man, I am just batting 1,000 today with this truck in general, actually. I cannot get that connection apart to save my life. I don't know what else I can really do here. I guess I can look around and see if there's maybe a bung on the tank I can get out and put one of these chuck ends in. This is the extent of parts I have to work with, which you would think really should be plenty. Alright, I'm losing daylight here, so I'm trying to hurry up and get things accomplished, but still keep you guys updated. I had to really work, but I got one of my quick connect air fittings into the air tank, so we should be able to just hook the air chuck on there now and charge up the system. While I was under here fighting and cussing at that thing, I realized what causes our West Virginia wheel alignment. Do you guys see my mistake there? Oh, what a rookie move. When I threw the chain around the front axle, I accidentally looped the chain around the tie rod as well. So we're currently compressing the tie rod up against the axle. That's not good. I gotta back that off and rehook it. Alright, the compressor's running. I think we're late enough into the evening now where the bees aren't gonna get all riled up, so that's good. I got just enough air hose. Let's charge up these brakes. Oh boy, we're cooking now. Hopefully we see that air gauge start coming up, if it's still connected. I don't think the gauge is working, but it seems like we can release the brakes. Let's see if we can actually drag this up on the trailer now. Please roll, please roll. Oh, the winch seems a lot happier. Things are happening. Oh, finally. Man, I was getting worried. I was starting to think we were never going to get this thing up on that trailer and out of here. There's the spot where it was sitting for definitely more than a few years. The neighbor here came out and told me that they've been living here for 3 years now and it has never moved in that time. Which, yeah, I would say it's been there at least 3 or 4, if not longer than that. So I'm not out of the woods yet. There's some low-hanging power lines on the way out of here that I'm really hoping I don't catch now. It's a good time. Pretty happy though. I mean, it leveled out the truck real nice. Got just the right amount of tongue weight. Everything looks pretty good. Let's mosey on down the road, huh? Alright, so it's the next morning. We've got our hot rod home here. I don't know where to start. I don't know if I even want to bother to take this thing off the trailer. As I think I explained earlier in the video, it's really rough. So we got it home, but that's not the end of this story. I still want to hear this thing run. While I don't think that this truck is ever going to exactly be put back into use, it's a little too far gone for any of that. I still think that the engine is worth saving. Possibly the transmission. Buddy Sam over at Scrappy Industries is interested in the bottom piece of the dump bed there, with basically just the dump lift and hoist and the pumps that go with it. There's probably a few other odds and ends I'll save off of this truck, but at the end of the day, guys, if you really wanted one of these trucks, There's better ones out there that you could get for not a lot of money. This one was free for a reason. It is super far gone. I don't know if you noticed before, the floor of the cab was all rotted out and patched up. The whole cab in general is super rough. Top of the windows up there, super rotted. That door's gone. The whole hood's been busted up and patched on several times. She's been used and abused, but we're gonna save what we can from it, and pieces, parts will live on at least. The main thing I'm interested in is that screaming Jimmy under the hood here. I want to see about getting this Detroit running. I feel like I can actually work on this thing now without threat of being assaulted by a whole bunch of bees. So the first thing I want to do is I want to pull off this intake horn and see if we can clean out that mouse house and hopefully find what's locking up this poor Detroit. Also, I'm not sure I showed it earlier, but the last inspection sticker on this truck is from 1998. That's the last time this truck was on the road. Now the guy that's given it to me told me that they did use it for a site truck for a little while, so it's been run more recently than that, but definitely for the last 3 to 5, if not more years, it's been sitting in that exact spot before we yanked it out of there last night. To make our lives easier, I think it's going to be best to pop off this clamp and try to get this exhaust out of the way, and then we should have better access to this intake. Man, that thing stinks. Ugh. Hey, look at that. First easy thing that's happened with this process. Oh, I'm surprised at that. I was thinking that mouse urine's going to be really holding these things in. Hoo-hoo! Yeah, things are not looking ideal in the blower there. Look at how much mouse house was in this thing. Now there is a screen, which I wasn't remembering, and this screen keeps any big debris from getting in there to the blower, but it didn't stop mouse urine and fine debris, and I'm thinking that could be what's going on. Is that mouse urine gets down in there, it's really corrosive, and it could corrode the parts together. Pop this thing off of here, we'll clean this all out really good, and see if we can't get this thing to turn. And that is some hard stuff. Ugh. Yeah. Epic levels of corrosion there. That is not cool. I hate mice. I'm gonna grab the shop vac and try to suck all that out of there. What it'll end up doing is locking everything up, not letting the engine spin. I'm hoping this is what's actually locked up and not the engine. I don't think the engine is, because I was able to see the crankshaft turning a little bit that night when we were trying to start this thing in the dark. Contact. Alright, I got a wrench on the engine here, trying to turn it backwards. It is moving. Not very far though. I don't want to say it's 100% confirmed, but I'm like 90% confirmed that our blower is in fact what is holding us up. I can turn the engine like, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a rotation. And I don't know if that's... I'm not positive how these are driven. I thought it was gear driven, but if it's gear driven, that doesn't make any sense, because I shouldn't be able to turn the engine hardly at all without this thing turning. If it's chain driven and there's slack in the chain, I could see a little bit more, but even still probably not as much as I'm getting. At any rate, I still think this is our culprit, because this is not turning at all. So as I said, this is severely oxidized by rat urine, mouse urine, whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and soak everything down and let this penetrating oil try to work at dissolving all the corrosion in here. Could take a while, but I got an idea that might speed up the process. So while we're waiting for the penetrating oil in the other side to do its thing, I want to go ahead and pop this valve cover off of here. The 671s are nice. They just have these wing nuts on the top, and you can pop them off real quick and easy. With the valve cover off, we'll be able to check the rack and see if the fuel rack is stuck, and that's pretty typical on these engines. We kind of switched from quick and dirty in the field to quick and dirty in the driveway. I really still don't want to put a lot of time into this thing, but if I can spend a couple hours and get a running 671, that'll make me happy. All right, you guys ready to see what's behind door number 1? Well, I guess this is actually the second door we're opening. What's behind door number 2? Oh, raccoon poop in there. Nice. Yeah, I should have blown that out first, but we still got the vacuum out. No, we don't. I put it away. Well, it did look pretty clean in there until I just dropped all this fresh dirt down in there. We'll get the compressor and blow that all back out, I guess. Is the fuel rack stuck? Oh, locked up tight, of course. Well, it's been a day, and I've been soaking these blower vanes, or whatever you want to call those things. I don't know the proper word. I think I said that before. But I've been soaking them down with penetrating oil, trying to get that oxidation loosened up a bit for us. But so far, she's still pretty stuck. Well, that was gross. I just leaned in to take a peek deep down inside of that blower there as best I could, and something touched my hair, and then I looked up and realized what it was. I don't know if you guys can tell. That is a petrified mouse. It's hanging by its tail from the air cleaner, and that's gross. I don't know how I didn't notice that before. And one thing I noticed but didn't mention, I don't think, is the bottom half of the air cleaner is missing. Looks like it's probably supposed to be originally an oil bath air cleaner. She's long since disappeared, I guess. I don't have it. It's not in the truck or anything. That's how the mice were getting down into the intake, I guess. I don't know if the camera's focusing on it or not, but this is some sort of hellish puzzle looking thing underneath here. Sucked up against the bottom of the air cleaner is what appears to be a bunch of dead, oil-soaked, petrified mice. So they must have built a home inside the air cleaner, and then somebody tried to fire this thing up and just rallied them right up against the air cleaner, and they stayed right there. And then somebody probably didn't understand why the truck wasn't running right, and this is all speculation. I have not confirmed this with the owner. But then I'm going to guess somebody took that air cleaner off there, realized what happened, and just ran it without that air cleaner or something. I don't know. Or left it without the air cleaner on it, and then the mice got into the intake, the actual intake then, and that's what locked up our blower. Alright, well, I did some Googling, and I found that brake clean is actually supposed to be halfway decent at breaking up aluminum corrosion, which is what I believe is holding us. So I sprayed half a can of that in there. Hopefully that does something. Just to kind of expedite the process a little bit, I'm gonna do some things you probably shouldn't. So if you're squeamish, look away. To get it to roll off a trailer, I had to cage these brakes. I didn't have any tools the other night when I was at that location. Otherwise, I would have just done that from the get-go and not had to fool with the compressor. So I put the caging bolts in there, and that makes the brakes release and it can freewheel. But one thing I can try to do is put it in a high gear and just gently shove it back and forth with the loader, and that'll kind of, you know, beat the drive line back and forth, kind of trying to work that blower free, or because the blower is such a small component, it'll just explode the gear that drives the blower. The blower is probably junk anyway at this point, so I kind of don't really care. That's kind of a worst case scenario and maybe not a great way to look at things, but something's going to happen. Well, I was really hoping we were going to be able to get this engine broke free and running in the truck, but it's not looking good. I can't waste a whole lot of time on this thing. I mean, it doesn't really do me a whole lot of good to get this thing running. It's not going to serve me any purpose. The truck is junk at the end of the day anyway, so looking a lot more like we're just going to start breaking this thing down, and then maybe, just maybe, after the cab and everything's off and we have better access, I'll be able to pop that blower off and maybe start the engine without the blower. I don't know if you can even do that on a Detroit. I think they need that much air getting rammed into them, but I could be wrong. All right, our mouse-riddled Detroit has been marinating for, I think, a week and a half now. I think it's time to get medieval because it is still locked up absolutely solid. And that blower is probably junk anyways, is kind of the way I'm looking at this. Anything I can do to make that thing turn and make sure that the rest of the engine is viable, so much the better. If you're squeamish, it's time to look away. Well, I ran the air hammer on these blower impellers for a while, or whatever the heck you call those things. I'm not sure the technical terms, but if it wasn't junk before, it sure is now. I blew a hole through that one. Pushing on this face, though, man, it takes a lot more abuse than I thought it would. I thought I would have damaged that worse than I did. But even with all that, it still hasn't even thought about moving. I mean, it is seized up solid, guys. Without that thing turning, there's no way to get the engine to make a revolution or even think about starting, because even if I could independently turn the engine by removing the gear that connects the blower to the rest of the valve train and everything, then there's still no way for the engine to get air without unbolting that whole blower, and I don't think we could probably get that blower out of there in the frame rails. Also, the more I'm looking at everything with this truck, I realize this is a hydraulic clutch in this truck and it no longer functions. Maybe you could spend a few hours bleeding out the hydraulic clutch and maybe it would come back around, but more than likely, probably not. At least that's been my experience with like Ford Ranger clutches and stuff. If they don't work, that means they don't work. And the only way to really fix that is to pull the transmission, at least on a Ford Ranger. I would assume these are probably the same. So no matter what, even if we got the engine running, we wouldn't be able to drive the truck at all, even just for giggles. And as stated before, the cab is so far gone that it just doesn't matter. The truck is bound for the scrapyard anyways, but I would love to get that Detroit running. We're definitely not going to send the engine to the scrapyard. You guys can see on this side just how bad it is. Look at the doors, completely gone, and you can see it's been patched once already. And it's still that far gone again. Basically what it looks like it's boiling down to is that there's no practical way to get this engine freed up and spinning over in the truck. So I think we're gonna have to do a truck delete. Well, that gives us a little bit better access, huh? You guys can better see that damage I did to that poor thing now. I think the damage was really already done before me, though. I'm going to go ahead and yank this cover off of here and see if we can't disengage the blower from the rest of the engine and then have it make a full revolution. Alright, so I had to do a little bit of research. Keep in mind I've never done this before, but there's a little snap ring here. Supposedly we can remove that, and then after the snap ring is removed, we should be able to just pull the drive shaft out of here that runs the blower. There we go. Alright, so there's really no good way to grab a hold of that drive shaft and pull it out. So I'm trying to drive a easy out into the center on it. And hopefully I can use that to pull this drive shaft out now. Yes! There we go. Now, if my calculations are correct, the engine should turn. Alright. I got some jumper cables hooked up to this thing since we ripped the leads off. Let's see if this thing's gonna crank. Uh-huh. I grabbed another battery and hooked it up to 24 volts now. Let's see if we can get it to spin a little bit faster. Oh yeah. So good news, bad news. The engine spins. That's the good news. Seems like it would probably fire right up if we could get fuel and air to it. But the bad news is, with the blower in the state that it is, we're not getting any air into the engine. Also, with the drive shaft from the blower removed, we're not turning the fuel pump down here, so we're not getting fuel to the injectors either. So because of our lack of fuel and air supply to this engine, and no real way to remedy that without a ton of work, I mean, it's not worth doing just for the sake of this video. We're not going to be able to get this thing to run, unfortunately, on diesel fuel. But for giggles, and since I've already ruined this blower, actually I didn't ruin it, I think the mice ruined it, I'm going to see if I can't get this thing to light on some ether just for giggles and to prove that the rest of the engine is a good running engine. So right now, no air is able to pass between these, I keep wanting to call them vanes, but I'm not sure, again, the word for that. But I already poked a hole in the one. I think I can just take the air impact and poke a hole straight through, and hopefully we can get some ether into it. You can unbolt the blower and remove it, of course, but you also have to unbolt the whole governor assembly, the whole water pump assembly. There's a bunch of bolts at the top, which are easy to get to. The ones at the bottom, gonna really suck to get to. It's still a fair bit of work. And again, we're just making video at this point, just for giggles. It's really not worth all that effort. So before I do anything, I'm just gonna hit it with some ether in the blower. I don't think it's gonna get in there, but we're gonna try. All right, let's see what we can do here. Contact. Yeah. Like I thought, it's not able to pull any air in there. I knocked a hole clear through this thing, and on the other side of it you can see there is still a ton of that corrosion. I think I did it just right too. I was able to stop in time to keep that hunk of metal from breaking off. It's just bent up out of the way right now. So maybe it'll actually do something now. This might be an exercise in vain, unfortunately, because the way this works is this you know, this blower compresses the air and shoves it into the cylinders. And without them doing their job compressing that air, we're probably not getting near enough air. Not to mention that that little hole I knocked in there might not be allowing enough air either. I can try making that hole a little bit bigger, but what I'm suspecting is that it's just not going to have the airflow no matter what. Even if you remove the entire blower, I don't know that you could actually get one of these things to run without it, since they are designed for it. I don't think any Detroits were ever built without a blower. I think they all had them. Just listening to the engine cranking over, though, I can tell that it seems like it has, you know, even compression and everything. I don't think there's any real big issues in there. I think it's all just this blower what is our issue. Wah, wah, wah. Well, not every ending is a happy ending. Unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to be able to get this thing going like this. It would take a tremendous amount of effort and parts to get it going, and it's really just not worth that to me right now just to make a video. That'd be the only reason we would be doing that, is for the sake of this video. So if you guys absolutely demand in the comments that I should do it, well, maybe I'll consider it. But right now, it's just not worth the time. This is how you know that this is as real as it gets. This is actual reality, not that stuff they put on TV and call it reality. More than likely, I'm just going to yank this thing out of the chassis and huck it in one of these containers for storage until a rainy day arises that maybe I need it for something. You know, in any case that you might need this to repower something or replace another 671 in something, you're probably going to have the parts from the old engine that you could put onto this one to make it all happy. Of course, you're going to need a blower and probably a few little other odds and ends. There's also some other goodies from the truck as a whole that we're going to save. Probably end up saving that bumper. I plan on saving that front grille assembly off of this truck as some pretty cool wall art for the shop or anywhere else that I want to stick it up at. Just the simple little heat shroud here on the stack. I'll probably pull that off and keep that for, you know, something we need in the future. Stuff like that I like to have laying around. Of course, we'll drain out the fuel out of the fuel tanks and probably filter it and run it in some of the old equipment here. Stuff like Fat Alice, she just likes to eat that kind of stuff up. Doesn't bother her a bit. Diesel fuel keeps pretty well. As long as there's no water in it, it'll be fine to run. My neighbor was asking me a couple weeks ago if I had any runnable 1020 tires for around the farm. And sure enough, there's a halfway decent set here. So I'll probably give those to him. That'll keep him running. So it's not like it's a complete waste of a truck. There's definitely pieces, parts that are going to live on here and keep other things going. Probably my favorite part about doing what I do is, even in worst case scenario like this, where the cab was so far gone and the bed's so far gone and the engine won't run, we're still going to make use of what is left and what is salvageable and do something productive with it in order to keep other things alive. Actually, this fuel tank over here is kind of a neat looking one. Might end up saving that one. This old square check plate, you don't see that much anymore. That's I don't even know that they produce that stuff anymore, but you used to see it a lot on old trucks and equipment. It's got that cool retro look to it. So at the end of the day, what are we really left with here? Well, we're left with a halfway decent 671 that I know I can stick in the shed and have for whenever I might need it in the future. We're also going to have a good hunk of scrap metal left sitting there, so we'll be able to take that in and hopefully make a few bucks off the scrap metal and make all the effort worth it. Plus, hopefully you guys like this video enough that it helps make my efforts a little more worthwhile as well. If it wasn't for you guys and liking these videos so much, I probably would not have even fooled with this truck. I probably would have just brought it home here, yanked the engine out of it right away, and sent the rest down the road to the scrap heap. But hopefully you guys like the video and appreciate it. So as long as you guys keep watching, I'll keep making them. If you did like the video, do me a big favor. Tickle that thumbs up button down below there. It really helps out the channel. It doesn't cost you guys but a second of your time. And it helps me to keep making videos about junk like this. If you'd like to help support the channel in a little more direct fashion, you can head on over to dieselcreek.com, pick yourself up some sweet swag over there at the store. We have new t-shirts for summertime. We've got some lighter weight zip-up hoodies available now at the store for those cool summer nights. And as always, we have some hats and other t-shirts and sticker packs and beer koozies and everything you need over there at the store. That's dieselcreek.com. Link is always down in the description. So until the next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.